So I've seen a lot of videos about black representation in anime and different fiction, so that got me wondering, since it's Black History Month, why not explore if the manga I cover the most, BlueLock, actually got it right in a deeper dive than I've usually gotten. Now, what I mean by proper representation is if Kaneshiro can actually understand black culture and not just fit the characters in classical stereotypes for the sake of because they are black, but because it actually fits their character. He also has the job of making the character designs, in which while he doesn't get the hands right as the palms don't actually represent us black people, key examples Unazi, Loki, and Dada Silva. For the anime manga, I can let it slide because having to do that on a page-to-page basis is going to be pretty annoying. I wouldn't want to be in that situation. But for like at least the cover pages, like volume 36, volume 33, for those two characters, we could have at least had like palms represented properly to show that, hey, I know what I'm doing, but I just can't do it consistently in the manga because that's gonna take way longer and I'm on a schedule that I have to release these chapters. That would have worked perfectly for me, but we didn't get that. But it isn't the biggest deal. Besides that, the character designs were pretty well done. Loki has a simple fade, and I get that at a barbershop like all the time, so it's relatable. I get like a mid-taper. It's relatable because some of us got them African parents who don't want you to have braids or dreads, whether it's money purposes or stereotypical gang street thug vibes that they are scared of, but so they want us damn near bald, bro. When you see Dada Silva, your mind easily thinks of like a Caribbean black person, bro, thanks to the specific shading of Kaneshiro and Nomura emphasizing on his braids. His chunky teeth represent his growing up in the slums backstory, as he probably didn't get to have proper dental care and probably has better interest to use his money for, as now he loves his money. For Levinho, I'll get into his portion of the video later because I actually do want to talk about his Brazilian roots in a deeper, darker meaning. Auggie has some cool twin braids, and the whole Nigerian team is just breathtaking. All well done. When I see them, I think of Nigeria, bro. Unazi nearly has the same hairstyle as my little cousin, so he's in my top 10 favorite characters easily. They are all just so relatable. None of them have them thick red lips that the Dragon Ball characters, Mr. Popo and that one dude from the Red Ribbon Army, I think his name was General Black, had. I forgot the names. Another thing they got right was fitting them into the BlueLock world. This was much easier for Kaneshiro than other mangakas because it's like, this is a soccer sports manga, so he can base it off of real life characters like Unazi and Osimhen, and then Loki and Kylian Mbappe. He doesn't have to do anything to like force them into the role. He just has to base them off of their real life characters and how they were originally. What's better than to originally base your characters off of real world characters? It makes them feel natural. It makes their story feel relatable and like, hey, I can relate to this character. I can understand this character's emotions, their in-depth qualities, that and that and that. However, I don't want to be yapping too much about the non-black history stuff, so there's just a few more minutes of this, and you can also follow the time skip stuff. So why do we celebrate it? So in 1926, a scholar named Carter G. Woodson noticed Americans were not learning enough about African American history, so he started Black History Month to highlight the importance of African Americans in the past, like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, to name a few. We still got to celebrate them as well as the current African Americans. So while it's based off of African Americans, I'm still going to branch out and do it for 9 black characters in BlueLock: Loki, Dada Silva, Levinho, Auggie, Unazi, Kuso, Bello, and Obabona. Now we have to go through the 3 different types of black characters that have been represented so far in BlueLock. There will be more, but for now in this video we're just focusing on the 3. First stage is the colonized black characters. So for those who don't know, there was a scramble for Africa period when France and England had an intense colonization on Africans between 1870 and 1914. So yeah, it's pretty interesting as most of the French and English national teams consist of players who originate from African roots. Crazy what would have happened if everyone just played in their rooted countries. Africa would have at least had 1 World Cup under their name. But back to the point, the same stands for the French and supposedly English national teams. If Auggie is English, we will assume that since Kaneshiro is going to make his life a lot easier by putting Auggie in the England national team, that way he doesn't have to think of another country to put him in and develop a whole new country just for Auggie. So yeah, It makes sense also since Damon and Busby are on the English team. The French team has 6 players who are all black on that starting lineup. We won't be talking about them, but we will talk about Loki. So big ups to them. For the Brazilian black characters, while it may seem all pretty in Brazil with all the fun carnivals and everyone's love for soccer and good food with lots of parties, there is a lot of poverty outside of that area, and Dada Silva was one of those outsiders according to Tokimitsu. And for Levinho, he learned his soccer skills from capoeira, which mixes martial arts and music. However, what he doesn't say is why it's a mix, and the reason was this was invented or mainly known from African slaves who were forbidden from doing any martial arts training, so they disguised it as dancing. Now the last stage is the West Africans, specifically for orphans. I will get more into this one later as I will be handling Unazi and Obobana, and yes, I said them specifically as I am not alone in this video. This is Black History Month. I am going all out for this video, so I have rallied the Black YouTuber Avengers for this video. However, all 4 of them being in an orphanage is a pretty step up from being homeless, showing how well Nigeria is actually built. This is a very different situation than what we have seen in BlueLock, as we are dealing with a team based around family and an anchor. So let's get into the first guest of the day, Animage, who will be covering Loki.
When it comes to representation in media, for me, it isn't enough to just put minorities in the series. You must also give them some type of depth in some way, whether that's through their backstory, their personality, or by the role they play in the story. We have yet to get Loki's backstory, and while we've gotten a glimpse into his personality, we haven't gotten enough to make him stand out above other characters, in my opinion. So, as of right now, Loki is a character who can really only be defined by the role he plays in the story. When we were first introduced to Loki in this series, he was presented to us as a world-class player who was already representing his country. Later, during the 5v5 against French team, he, along with the rest of the World 5, shows the audience and the BlueLock players the large gap between them and the rest of the world. The only difference between him and the rest of the World 5 is his age. At this point in the series, he was only 17 and was already at a level far above anything we have seen in BlueLock, with speed so inhuman that it could only be called God speed. And this was before he received the New Gen title. If this match proved one thing, it was that Loki was the very definition of a prodigy. Then he returns again in the NEA arc, where we learn that he never touched the field until the Ubers match. And one of the first things we hear from Noel, the world's #1 striker, is that he considers Loki his biggest threat. This is very big praise from someone like Noah. He didn't say this about Chris Prince, the second best striker. He didn't say this about Mark Snuffy, the overall best player. He didn't even say this about Michael Kaiser, the person he was building up to one day rival him, but Loki, a 17-year-old prodigy. And it's clear to see why. During his entire time on the pitch, Loki could have easily ended the match at almost any point, but he was more concerned with fostering a goal for Ren to see if he could one day challenge him. Even in this most recent match, despite having done nothing so far, I, along with most people, are more than positive that Loki will once again show why he is the goalpost that BlueLockers must reach to be within his arm's length of the world's #1 title. Since his introduction, Loki has shown that he isn't just any ordinary athlete. He is one of, if not the best athlete in these series. And seeing a black character, especially one so young, be portrayed as a mountain that the BlueLockers must climb to reach the peak of soccer is an incredible representation of black excellence.
Hello everyone, my name is Serena Rosa and my section is on the character Auggie, but before we get into how he is handled and represented in the story, let's get a quick backstory on him. We first meet Auggie during the Neo Egoist League arc for Team Munchen, and his introduction in chapter 169 actually makes him seem like he's going to be an intense character, since initially we only see him in the shadows of the Munchen panel, and I actually really like this panel since it gets you very hyped for the Munchen match. Chickadee, Reo, and Nagi are some of the strongest characters in the BlueLock facility, so knowing they're going to be the next opponents makes you very hyped, while also making you curious about who Auggie is, since the author purposely could have just made the panel only including the 3 characters that we know, but he wants to let us know that Auggie is an important character and that his role in this match matters just as much as the other Blue Lockers. And I was not involved in the community when the Munchen match started in the story, since I actually caught up to the manga right as the match ended, but I could only imagine the theories and conversations people had about Auggie and who he was just from this panel alone. But it wouldn't be until a few chapters later, in chapter 173, we would finally get Auggie's full design. So let's analyze that first to see how it's handled. Right off the bat, you see that Auggie has a pretty unique design, especially for a black character. Some of the things that stand out about his character is his height, since even being slightly behind our main characters, you can tell how tall Auggie is. And remember, these are not small characters, since Nagi stands at 6'3" while Reo stands at 6'1". So the fact that Auggie looks even taller than that is impressive. It makes you excited for the physical feats that his character could potentially have just from his height alone. Next, his hair also adds to his design and is probably one of the most distinct parts of his design, since when you think of Auggie, probably the first thing that pops into your head is that braided ponytail, and right away you see the author has taken the time when thinking of Auggie's design, since this is a style that we rarely see on black characters in anime, if ever, especially for a male character, since typically they are given very short hair with a fade, since I imagine that's easier to draw, and if they're given longer hair, then it's typically in a more afro style. So Auggie getting this braided look shows the author is taking the time to give each black character their own unique look, since at this point in the story, I'm pretty sure that the most prominent black characters we met so far before Auggie were Loki and Dada Silva, and they also had their own looks and designs. So the trend continues with Auggie getting his own unique hairstyle. And before we move on, what also stands out about Auggie in chapter 173, outside of his design, is that he's actually the forward for the team. So it makes you understand why he was included in that initial panel, since he's supposed to be the ace of the team. Now, with Auggie being the forward for Team Munchen, you would think he's going to be this extremely egoist character like Kaiser, since in general, we've been shown that strikers equal to ego in the BlueLock story. But when we actually get to know more about Auggie's character in chapter 179, we learn that Auggie's ego is different from other characters we have seen, since while most characters are very self-serving and wanting to score with their own goals, Auggie enjoys analyzing the talent of other players that interest him, even getting the title of doctor because of his analyst skills and knowledge of the sport. And I like that the author didn't just, for example, turn Auggie into another egoist character, but giving him his own unique motivations that we haven't seen of a character outside of, I would say, ego. Also, having him be a more calm character and personality also contrasts and makes him stand out among characters in the manga. Also, throughout the match, showing that Auggie's main strength is his high intelligence and that the way he's able to quickly understand and break down plays in the sport, even when they just happened and he's actively playing himself. Now, I could keep going on and on about Auggie, but I don't want my section to be too long. But I think it's clear that by everything I've said about Auggie so far, I think he's great representation as a black character. The unique traits that the author added to his character make him a fun character to read. I will say that his character isn't perfect, since I think the fact that Auggie is tied to Nagi's character right off the bat, making him basically his mentor, makes it so you don't really get to know Auggie outside of his mentoring of Nagi, and it would have been cool to even just get a quick flashback on Auggie so we could have a better understanding of who his character is. Plus, once Nagi decides to stop listening to him, we see even less of Auggie, so I would have loved to get to know his character outside of Nagi's story, since we have seen people call Auggie a fraud since he was the forward but didn't score in this match, but it's clear that Auggie was somewhat holding back since he was busy teaching Nagi and wanting him to grow. Plus, it's clear that Augie's attentions coming to the NEL wasn't to show off and score, even though it's highly likely he was the person that scored in the Ubers versus Munchen match, which would have been cool to see just so we could see him when he's in that striker mindset. So my hope is that Auggie not only returns for the England match in the World Cup, but we see him get the treatment of a fully realized character that has his own storyline and hopefully get a backstory. Since one of my worries is that if England does have a new Gen 11, then Auggie once again is going to get sidelined for a more flashy character. I would love for Kaneshiro to build on a character that we already know and many of us love, even outside of his smaller panel time, but only time will tell. Outside of these few issues, I think Auggie is a great character. From his design, personality, and intelligence, he stands out as a character of black excellence in the BlueLock story.
Hey guys, it's OP. I'm thankful for Suki for this opportunity to come back on his channel and share in this topic of black representation in BlueLock. BlueLock itself is one of my favorite mangas, and as a black man, it's nice to see the diversity held within. The target of my attention though, of course, is Dada Silva, the representative from Brazil. First and foremost, his design, and I'm thankful that Kaneshiro knows ball, because not only is his design not a hurtful stereotype, it's also pretty realistic as well, sporting a tall muscular frame and some nice dreadlocks. Also, I must say that Nomura 2 does a great job with Dada's facial features, making the distinguishing parts prominent but not overbearing, like Dada's nose for example. He stands out while still fitting the world. Speaking of the world, next let's talk about Dada's place within it. Introduced as a group of the world's best strikers, Dada serves, like the other members of the World 5, as a reality check for the Blue Lockers after emerging from the second selection. Already, his prominence and strength is established within the story. Though here is where I must take my gripe, as not every example of representation is perfect, and we don't expect it to be either. While the other World 5 strikers are introduced with titles that show off their skill level, like the top scorer in the Premier League or the world's best free kicker, Dada instead is given the title of the hungry heavy tank who grew up in the slums. While I wish we got something related to his skills instead, I think this title might be referring to his real world inspiration, which personally, I think there are two. Firstly, Dada Maravilha, a Brazilian forward who played for the national team just like Dada, though in 1970. He also, of course, shares the first name, Dada, while also sharing Dada Silva's backstory, as the real-life Dada was born into poverty. He started playing in 1965 and grew in skills so much that the then Brazilian president asked the current coach to place Dada onto the national team himself. The other player that I believe inspired Kaneshiro to create Dada was, pardon my pronunciation, Julian de Vera de Sos, also known as Hulk. Listed on FIFA's own website as a powerhouse, I believe most of Dada's playstyle at least comes from him. Hulk was known for his incredibly powerful physique and kicks. He also played for a Japanese team, playing the full 2006 season with a team from Sapporo. Perhaps this is where Kaneshiro first heard of him. I mentioned it previously, but let's talk more about Dada Silva's playing style. As you know, it revolves around his superior physicality, able to shake off tackles and challenges from the strongest players in BlueLock with ease. He also excels in one other area. The air. The previous best area player we knew was Ryu, a tall and lanky player who dominated over everyone in the air. That was until he encountered Dada. With his raid dive header, Dada really showed that there's levels to this game. Finally, let's address Dada's character. In the main manga, we unfortunately don't get too much insight into his dreams and desires, besides the ego to become the best, of course. In his interactions with the other World 5 strikers and Blue Lockers, his confidence and vocal nature are clear. To get a further dive, we can look to the episode Nagi spin-off, which Kiora asks the World 5 what are their motivations, their ego. Dada replies, "And I want to make a ton of money so I could be happy." A simple and straightforward ego, but it's one that fits him perfectly. Overall, for his purpose in the story and the short time we were given, Dada Silva was a great example of a good character who is black. That's all I have to say, and thanks again Suki for inviting me on the channel.
Now, the other Brazilian superstar Levinho is introduced in chapter 155, and my goodness, he looks brilliant. Top 3 hairstyles in the whole franchise easily. He is based off of Neymar with the Prince vibes, Brazilian roots, and just a flair dribbler from Barcelona. From the badge, to the pose, to the hair, to the fro. I can't glaze his hair enough. The peacock vibes from it represent everything about him, which is pure freedom, and his butterfly aura perfectly represents that. This is one of the top 10 best characters in the franchise for me. He came into the NEL as the current top scorer in the La Liga and is referred to as the extravagant dribbling genius. We finally see dialogue from him in chapter 160 where we learn the most from him. He tells everyone to take it nice and easy, and even though he is their master, he isn't going to teach them crap about soccer. He claims that as the world's best, he has no obligation to give his students hints on that path. When Bachua tries to contradict him, he says it doesn't matter what the world says because he has the world's best in his mind. If you want to get the best thoughts out of me on Levinho's character archetype and with his playstyle and teaching format and everything else to him, I highly suggest watching the Levinho vs World 5 video I did a while back. Funnily enough, it was with OP as well, doing Dada Silva for this video. We are Brazilian bros, OP. So now I'm going to quickly glance over his speeds. He comes into the game because it seems fun due to Kaiser and Bachua's goals. He immediately is pressed by Noel, and surprisingly Noah is doing pretty well to hold his own at first. I mocked Levinho for this since Noah is a striker and not a defender, but against a muscle tank like him and just watching Bachua versus Kunagami, it makes sense actually. Plus, Noah played pretty well in a defensive role in the Munchen and Uber's games. However, he is able to take advantage of Isagi's interference using him as a shield so he can move through with ease. Honestly, for the time on the pitch he had, it took him less than a minute to get into flow if I'm seeing those flow crystal eyes right. So that is really impressive to see how he can just activate his flow state from the immediate moment he found freedom in the game thanks to Isagi. He is experienced to be called the dance man because his ability to surprise others can be rivaled by anyone. He is number 1 at this, which means there is a chance he could have surprised Noah if their duo lasted longer. The ones who are toyed with during Levinho's performance will fall like they're dancing, and that is called the dance of the feet. Now his next impressive feat is actually an off-screen feat, which is coming in the PXG vs FC Barça game 2-0, where Barça was getting destroyed, but Levinho's mere appearance allowed Bachua and Otoya to score goals to bring it level to the 2, but they lost to Shido's header. Levinho really bullied those poor kids. Levinho pulls up for the last game against Manchester City. He doesn't really do anything worthy of talking about in this game, except for this one play in chapter 297 when Levinho comes out of nowhere to steal the ball off of Nagi's head. That's just insane. He could have gotten a foul for that, but he did it perfectly. We see him in one last chapter, being chapter 307, where we have a whole Camp Nou stadium chanting Levinho's name. We finally get to see him in an actual professional match where he holds off 2 Chicory defenders to get a lob past the bunny, who scores a high lefty shot. Now time to get into them Nigerian characters. Hey, what's good everyone? It's Raito6 and today I'm glad to be a part of this massive collab Suki put together. The lad has really been moving mad lately. Someone better get a real good checkup on him because something ain't right with that one. Now for black representation in BlueLock, I've been assigned with the weakest character on the list, Nigeria's captain as well, and I'm the captain, so that makes sense. So we will start with the bad apple and finish strong like Arsenal in the Premier League, cause they always finish strong. Their designs were both 10 out of 10, Kaneshiro really slapped with the whole team. I really didn't like Bello to be honest, so I'm going to be quick with him. He started off good in his debut play, catching a weak pass from Kuso which could have been stolen by Bachua, and sends a sloppy pass to Unazi, and proceeds to do nothing until chapter 317, where he's holding off Hiyori to send off a pass to my fellow captain Kuso. In the second half, he tries to get past Kawasu, but got caught, but was able to hold Sadiq. However, if you can give this little one anything, it's that he had the balls to hype up his team as if this was a moving scene. 3-0 down. That really takes guts, little man. Talking about how one goal will make a massive difference for the team, and he was so close to being the person to do it too, you know, as he could have came in for that slide goal, but Corona had to come in clutch for Japan. And now it's time for Kuso, the captain of Nigeria, based off of Edgar Davids, a Barcelona midfielder back in the day when I was still young, you know. They both got the sports goggles, the corny dreads, and the official giveaway that he was based off of Edgar Davids is just the shooting style in chapter 319. Kuso shot with his left foot, which Davids is known for his powerful lefty. Anyways, I won't ramble into the backstory since Suki will cover it in his Unazi part, so I'll just get into his feats, which are mad impressive. Kuso starts off the match by blitzing through Isagi and sending a pass for Bello, claiming it to being the shortest, the fastest, and the best answer. Bro, he really feels like he is EST of WWE Bianca Belair. After they concede a goal in the span of 3 minutes, they lick their wounds, ready for a counterattack. Kuso rushes through Batua and sends a pass to Unazi. Bro is mad good with his dribbling technique, eh? Kuso, besides the glazing, had a very interesting role to play in this match, you know. Typically in Isagi match, it's mainly Isagi monologuing every single play, and that's my boy, I love him. But this was also nice to see, you know, since Nigeria were the underdogs, Kaneshiro gives that typical attention to Isagi, and now it's to Kuso, you know, who is shocked by the explosive egotistical prowess of Japan. It was really a nice touch to make Japan look like the villains, you know, because they have that world experience thanks to the NEL, meeting superstars like Kaiser, Ness, Lorenzo, Charles, Auggie, and the Master Strikers. Nigeria hasn't seen that outside world, so it's kind of like what if BlueLock went into this tournament without that proper training, but we are seeing that through the opponent's eyes. Kuso tries to bring the score to 2-1 with an assist, but Gagamal was on peak timing, if I must say so myself. Kuso, after reflecting on his mistake, to listen to Unazi of not making any changes to the team, and yeah, Gambari, my boy Gambari, we're the same age, but you're so sad. Unlike me, if I was on that team, I would not let my players be the one deciding my team. I would decide it myself. For potentially the biggest tournament you will ever coach, your job could be on the line and you're just bandwagoning on the Unazi train. 100%, man. That's a massive deriding. Kuso does his best performance of the game, going through Kawasu and Rayo and tanking a shoulder tackle from Reichi and sending a deadly curve pass to Unazi, who fails again to score. Now that was the last important thing he did in this game. Honestly, even though I know he would never get as much focus again as he did in this game, it was short but sweet to see Kuso cook. He really grew on me as a character. Honestly, you all know I don't rate the new Gen 11s, and IQ hasn't really moved me this tournament. So honestly, with how things are before chapter 338, Kuso has been the best captain for me. Anyways, giving it back to Suki to wrap things up. Obabona. He pretty much has a similar backstory to Unazi and the rest of the group, so I won't get into it, but just cover his in-game feats. When Unazi stops Rin's shot, Obo is the first person to receive the ball and send a header pass to Kuso. I think my favorite feat comes from chapter 319 out of Obo's feats in this game, where he stops Rin and then sends the pass off to Kuso. It's nothing flashy, but considering like Lorenzo was interception merchant and the last competent new defender we saw in the NEL, I kind of got the vibe that Obo was going to be the same, but in the air. So seeing him work both well in the air and on the ground was really a nice sight to see. His presence in the air is what Ayu should have been doing, but he didn't. So Obo doing it was a much welcome experience. Oh yeah, shout out to Sadiq and Agrian for doing something in this game too. I like how, unlike Bello, he was always trying and actually being somewhat effective until the end of the game, as he stopped Batua's pass, which is good for his development, and exploits Batua's flaw of always using the same strategy just because it worked once. He stops the pass and sends it to Kuso. The man even embodied the striker's ego for one play to try and score, with everyone rushing and trying to score Nigeria's first goal, which seemed like Bello was about to score. However, Corona had to come in clutch. Big ups to Obo for reaching back as fast as he did to keep up with Rin, but it was Isagi's time. As far as feats go, that was about it. I was glad to see another confident defender in the manga about strikers. It was a much welcomed experience in this match. In chapter 313, he is referred to as the Shining Hope ever since Kuso invited him to the world of soccer as a way to help him get over his grief of losing his parents, as Unazi hadn't tried to make any friends since he had gotten to the orphanage. Kuso rage baits Unazi into playing soccer with the others, and they are shocked to see how good Unazi actually is. But Unazi, did you not have any other family members like uncles or aunties? But hey, it ain't my story, it's kind of shows. Anyways, that doesn't matter as he has a new family now. His motivation for football is similar to his friends, which is getting money to buy things like a house or tasty food. But Unazi claims going pro is not that easy, in which they all say it don't matter since they have Unazi. And thus, the luminous Unazi carries Nigeria into victory after victory, even leading them to a U20 AFCON championships. Everything is looking bright for them since they have the start in Unazi, but over relying on one system can easily be countered, no matter how overpowered it may be. In chapter 323, Unazi says he doesn't care about that. He just wants to play soccer with his family, as this is his repayment for them. Taking him in, he wants to bring them a World Cup victory. So he doesn't want to change anything, as that could have resulted in one of his three brothers not being able to play alongside himself, which becomes a problem as they hadn't faced the outside world yet. They have just been facing Africa and had no idea what was coming for them. Unazi uses his flexible and fast body to receive a sloppy pass from Bello, stating it doesn't matter what mistakes his teammates make, as he will be the glue to make everything alright. He shoots between both IQ and RU, but he is stopped by Nico. He makes up for it by rushing down the field to stop the potential opening goal of the game. Embracing his inner all might, Isagi is about to receive
Direct cross
from Chigri, but Unazi is there to stop the direct cross with his unlimited mobility. But Iorichi Isagi sees through it again. Once Unazi receives the ball and realizes he can't bypass Ryu, he goes back to relying on Kuso for ideas. It's a similar trope that Nagi had with Reo, but the only thing is that Unazi is able to break through that trope later in the game. Literally his last effective play in this game is actually breaking that trope. Reo scores to make it 2-0, and Unazi is the one to keep his head up high for the team when everyone else was having doubts if they could actually win against Japan. And for the 1000th time refers that I am All Might Unazi, and I am here to save the day. God, I love myself at sometimes. He did all that talking just to get stopped by freaking Gagamaro, bro. Yeah, and I love this one line from the Nigerian coach when he says their usual methods aren't effective, and keeps it real by saying their methods is spamming Unazi isn't effective. Even Unazi admits that this is a new one for him, and he said 2 chapters prior that they had faced walls and overcame them before. So what I believe he actually means is that this isn't the only time he's been in a mud hole with his team, but more so of this was the first time he hasn't been able to react and carry them through that mud hole. I think this is the first time he's been locked down to such a degree. So his big idea is to copy BlueLock's flow word for word, bar for bar, bro. By the way, I really love the panel of Nigeria just charging back to the pitch as if this was like a football Super Bowl team charging up to make their team entrance. That had me hyped, bro. And in the second half, Unazi saw that mammoth and said, oh hell no, bro, I ain't doing that. Nah, it's not for me. But however, he was able to stop Chigri's
direct cross
after Isagi's speech breaking down all of Nigeria's flaws and wishful thinking for improvement. Unazi is the one to respond saying, I want to be the best striker in the world. After Kuso's awakening, Unazi gets ready to get that one goal to turn a 0 into a 1. The same goal that helped Isagi and Team Z turn a 0 into a 1. Now, Isagi is the one to crush that shot course. However, Unazi finally is able to thrive in this restriction, trapping it with his chest and unlocking Predator Eyes to bring hope to all of Nigeria, but it's not by IQ. While Nigeria still didn't score, Unazi was able to evolve even if it didn't lead to a goal. He is still fired up and is able to declare he is going to surpass Isagi one day. In conclusion, I believe Kaneshiro has done a great job representing these black characters, from the ones in France being successful and to the point where half of them are in the starting lineup and one of them has the potential to be the world's greatest striker. But right now, he is the world's shittest guy. To Dada, Silva, the international superstar for his country, and Levinho, who probably won Copa del Rey and was leading La Liga in goals scored and mastered the art of capoeira to make his country proud. While Auggie and Nigeria have yet to been shown winning their confirmed game in the manga, they all still hold their heads up high and strive for better. In the face of goals against them, Auggie and Unazi get chills but find excitement to evolve to a new level to score theirs. All these characters use each game as an opportunity to find some self-worth and fun in it. Silva is just morny though, but the others have pure love for football. But to end it all, they all have showcased what black excellence looks like in football. Thank you Raito, Serena, OP, Leo, and Animage for all helping me out in this project. I appreciate every single one of you. And in the comment sections, happy Black History to all my black followers. And to all my followers, I just want to say I appreciate you all. Even though this is BHM, I appreciate every single one of you all, man. Every day we wake up, thanks to the Lord. We got to give thanks to each other. We got to uplift each other every time. The world is becoming more corrupt and corrupt. So let's be positive all the time. Let's always strive for better, just like Unazi and Auggie do. Even in the darkest times, let's strive for better. Stay blessed. Suki out.